Welcome to the Startup Grind.
Standing ovation. Wow. It was obviously orchestrated by Rich, but thank you. And when you all raise your hands saying that you are an entrepreneur, I can relate. So good to be among you today.
And the beer's there.
And I have beer, which I guess I've got a reputation.
You're the only one.
11:30 in the morning.
So this is actually the third time I've had the chance to interview Mark. The first time was at the original Urban Hive, that was probably almost 7 years ago, and then in Davis, and now here in Folsom. So just to get, I know a lot about you, but just to get people to know a little bit more about you. Where are you from? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, grew up in Roseville. Live in Rocklin today. We're building a family compound in Loomis, so that's I'm a Placer County guy. Business-wise, well, let me go family compound. I got 2 kids and 8 grandkids. My oldest grandchild turned 12 yesterday, so we're a really tight family. Riley, yeah. So we have a very close family, and we're all going to be living on the same property in Loomis. So hopefully we don't kill each other. But that's kind of where I am. I'm that hometown spirited person that understands the power of entrepreneurship. I was a newspaper carrier. Believe it or not, that was my first exit. We created an auction and sold my newspaper route when I was a little kid. And crazy. Then I got into video stores, and we actually had 12 stores in the Sacramento area. Pivoted from that to security cameras and the Northern Video you described. Mm-hmm. We had 5 security companies. After selling my companies in 2010, we doubled down on security again, and I now own the largest security camera company in the gaming world. So in terms of casinos, Caesars, MGM, the Wynn, El Dorado Casino, you name any of the Native American casinos, that's our customer base. We do business all over the country. Luckily, my brother-in-law is the president of that, so I don't really have to lift a finger. We actually have 2 companies in that space, and that's kind of my paycheck, if you will. And so now I get to go play podcast boy and hang out with you.
Well, actually, so I'm going to talk about the Northern Video. How did you, I think your dad had his own business. Is that how you got into it?
My dad was a TV repairman, right, and ended up having some success, turned it into a TV appliance store in downtown Roseville. And ultimately, we opened up a video store. And my brothers and I ended up buying out the video store company, grew it to 12 stores. My younger brother and I bought out the older brother. And then what happened was we had 12 video stores doing pretty well, but we saw the handwriting on the wall. We loaned a guy some money. He couldn't pay us back. And in the bankruptcy, we got his company. In our collection efforts, we got his company. It was called Northern Video, and it wasn't a security company at the time. It was professional video, broadcast video. We pivoted and created a security camera distributorship and got out of basically pro video.
So you pivoted. So how did you? I mean, growing it to 200 million is quite a feat. So how does one do that? I mean, there's a lot of people here that want to know your secret.
I would say one of the things we did was I'm always looking for some kind of advantage, some kind of competitive advantage, maybe a niche an approach that other people wouldn't take. So we focused strictly on security cameras, right? So as we phased out of pro video and broadcast, we focused on the camera side of things, where the competition in that world is they have a holistic approach to security, right? They have alarms and access control and all kinds of different things associated with security. We were great at video because of our background. My dad's TV shop. And so we focused on video. And the other thing that we did way different than anybody else is we built a centralized distribution model, which means in that business at the time, there were most of our competitors were brick and mortar. You walk in and you pick up your cameras and your alarm stuff and you put it on the counter and you sign for it and you go install it. We were more like a Ingram Micro or a traditional electronics distributor of today, where we had an inside call center, outside salespeople, and we shipped stuff all over the country. So it was a more cost-effective way of doing it. So in those 2 ways, we were different. And then we attacked hard on the phones. We gave good phone.
All right, that's actually, I think one of the thing that'll kill or make start of successful sales. Tell us about your marketing and sales process there.
Yeah, so we had it was multifaceted. We ended up building 5 cameras. We had a 5 companies: a manufacturer, a distributor, a catalog company, which became an online company, an integration company, and then a consulting company. So it ended up, it's kind of an interesting way of approaching the market, but we wanted to kind of hit it from all angles. In terms of growing sales, we sent a lot of direct mail. So that was a piece of it. But what really set us apart was our specialization. For most of our competitors, the video was the more complex part of the sale. And so when you're thinking about the camera, the counter boy or woman at one of our competitors, they were a generalist. We had the expertise on network video, and as things emerged and got more technical, we had a more technical sales force. And we also had a mantra: there's no problem more sales won't fix. And so if you had extra time as an inside salesperson, you're supposed to be banging the phones. So first thing when people came in the morning, we had a mantra called 10 by 9. And so you better, we open at 8, better have at least 10 good calls made by 9. So we created a lot of mantras associated with growing the sales force, and those were a couple of them.
Was that you that did it, or did someone else manage your sales force?
I was in the trenches, without a doubt. So I did have a VP of sales. But one of the things that we decided after making a few mistakes is that I would set up my desk right in the middle of a gigantic 70,000 square foot call center. My desk and the VP of sales and the sales manager are right in the middle, along with all the receptionists. So all the incoming calls would come there. And I ended up putting myself there in the middle instead of being upstairs in the office, because it felt that I was less approachable. And I think the day that I went down and sat on the sales floor and began working side by side with my teammates really was the day when that happened. We went from 25 million to, a couple $100 million. And that was the turning point. One of my mantras is the truth is in the trenches. That's where you learn the differentiations that can help you escalate.
So, and I asked this a lot of successful hunters. Did you have a near-death situation in your business?
Yeah, we loaned the guy the money. So picture this: I'm 27, 28. My brother was 1 year younger than me. We're in debt on our video stores, and we loaned this guy some money. We loaned him $567,000. Okay, over a time. He was in a lawsuit with Panasonic, and started off with $100,000 during the lawsuit. Jay, just get me through and pay my attorneys. Oh, it's almost over. We're going to closing arguments. Another couple $100,000. Next thing you know, it's $567,000 that we had borrowed from a bank that we were going to go open up more video stores with. Our goal was to get to 80 video stores, and then we just took but this was like a 30-day loan. All of a sudden, we borrowed everything we can get our hands on, so that this guy can win his lawsuit and pay us back. And then it was kind of a big payday for us. He files bankruptcy. He lost the lawsuit. Panasonic won. And so what are we going to do? Do you want this company? You can have it for free out of bankruptcy. Well, pay $567,000 for a $3 million company that wasn't making money. Got in. Okay, who knows we didn't know what we were doing, right? Because we're video store guys. And we had to figure out how to be more of a commercial sales force and build a commercial sales force. And we got put on credit hold by all the suppliers, as you can imagine. When when the owner of the company goes bankrupt, Sony and Panasonic and the companies we bought from all put us on credit hold. So that was near death. We couldn't get product. We were young. We were in debt. We were out of compliance on our bank covenants by a lot. There's no problem more sales won't fix.
So how did you,
That's where we learned it.
so I mean, it just sounds like such a dire situation. So how did you?
You got to get people to prepay for the product who are used to getting 30 days or 60 days to pay, which is tough to do. And we had, at that time, a big percentage of our business was to the federal government. You guys don't know that, remember this, but it used to be an Air Force base in town, McClellan Air Force Base. Before that, it was the Sac Army Depot and the Gulf War. So we took a company that had been making most of their sales to the remnants of the Gulf War, right? All the little cameras that they use in helicopters in the Gulf War. We bought that company, and then the Gulf War ended. Sac Army Depot closed. McClellan closed. KCRA was a big customer, and they bought videotape from us. People quit buying videotape eventually. Kind of a good reason to pivot to security.
So how did you see that pivot? That's always.
How did we see it?
Yeah.
The margins. That was really the interesting thing. The pro video business, if you will, was dominated by people that were. How many of you heard of B&H Distributing? Anybody? Yeah, maybe you bought a camera or something from them. Well, they were back then. They were around too. And those guys that live on low margins. And so the margins were really compressed. It is a lot of bid, government bid and compressed margins, where when we go out to sell a security camera, the margins were a lot better because we were adding value and we were helping.
So you just saw this opportunity that
you could just pull up a P&L at the end of the month and go, okay, over here I'm making 3 points. Over here I'm making 20. Okay, I'll go this way.
all right. So
We're the smartest guys, but that was pretty obvious.
yeah, smart work. So you tell me about the acquisition process when you sold Northern Video Systems.
Northern. Well, it was a merger. So we were the largest video security company, and we merged with the largest general line security company, independent. Okay, so we were a couple $100 million, they were a couple $100 million. And the big competitor out there was the division of Honeywell. They're over $1 billion. So we put the two next ones in line together, the ones that were really great at video, us, and the ones that had some brick and mortar, and we put them together and it became Tri-Northern. My man Scott there was, Scott the camera was working there. He was a manager of one of our video stores, and then he was part of that deal as well. So.
And then did you? It was a merger, but
we merged them together, and then we brought in private equity simultaneously, and so the private equity company bought out the two independents.
Oh, and so you're out. At this point, you're out.
At that point, it was out. I was the president of the company. I fulfilled 3 to 6 months worth of jail time staying with the company, and I ended up bouncing.
And then you started another video company afterwards.
Well, we had we had 5. Okay, so we had 5. So 4 of them left during, the manufacturer left during, sold during that, kind of combined with that process. And then there was this consulting company that we sold. And then there was also I mentioned that catalog company that had already merged with another company. We ended up ultimately exiting that a few years later. One other company that we had was this integration company that did the casino work. And my brother, me, and my brother-in-law were partners in that company. And I bought out my brother's share after we sold the company. So now I own 2/3 and my brother-in-law owns 1/3. And then he does all the work and I get 2/3 of the money.
That's really good.
Yeah, he doesn't like it.
So that's actually brings up. So I think you started a couple businesses with your children with Marcus and.
Well, I started one with my daughter, Ashley. In fact, I saw the picture that you had posted. I'm like, hey, I was a lot younger guy, and I was wearing my Haney Garcia Realty shirt in that one of those interviews. That was a company that my daughter did all the work, and then we ended up selling that company. We had got it up to 3 locations with one at the Palladio. And she sold that and then went on. Now she started another company that I'm not invested into at all. My son... wounded in Afghanistan. We have this special heart for the military, as you know. He now oversees a charitable organization that we started called Allegiant, and we're basically a workforce development business for taking veterans as they get out of the military and transitioning them into good careers.
Well, thank you for that, by the way.
So thank you for your service.
How was And I see this, you seem to have done very successful in working with family members. So what's the secret? It seems like I've seen
Okay, you have to turn off the camera, Scott. Look, this is kind of interesting. So actually, I don't know what the secret is to that. And if anybody has it, I'm here to learn too. My daughter, I invested, when I first sold my companies, I went into partners on a concrete company too. I'm like, that's entrepreneurs. We want to like do all these different things. So I became a concrete salesman with my buddy that I played Little League with. He was running into tougher times, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I can sell concrete. I can sell security cameras. I can sell anything, right? Well, 2010 was tough to sell concrete. So anyway, as I invested into that company, I said, okay, I'll invest, Bob. Invest meaning I put in like 10 grand, okay? And then he gave me a majority of the company because we were going to turn around. I said, if I do it, I'm going to bring in my daughter. So she was working for Adventist Health. She's a go-getter, graduated from UC Davis in 3 years, just a real go-getter. I'm bringing her in to kind of help me, help organize us two, us two old guys. That was real positive. We started flipping houses simultaneously, and she got her real estate license, a broker's license. You want to start a brokerage? Sure. So I put up the front money up front. And she went through a divorce. So Scott's heard all this, and it's really, I've never even brought this up in public before, but she went through a divorce, and she divorced who I would consider as like my best friend, my son-in-law. And that caused a major challenge within our entire family, right? The split up of these two that got married in kindergarten, right? Actually, they did behind the tree in Roseville at Woodbridge School. They got, and they get married, and all of a sudden they break up, and it was Haney Garcia Realty Group. Now it's Haney Realty because they're not together. But that really drew a major wedge between my daughter and me, and it was very, very difficult. So I don't know what the solution is. I guess don't quit because now we're building the family compound. Everything's back good. But I have a volatile, competitive set of kids. My son, right? Infantry Marine, he's a badass and he doesn't back down from anything. And then my daughter's a ball buster. So it's kind of like, oh, wow. I have two really ambitious children. And I'm so I have to try, I want to be that guy too, but I can't be that way around my kids. Luckily so I guess the answer, marry well. My wife is married almost 38 years. She is the glue. Oh my God. If I didn't have that, I would be screwed. So that's the answer. Have a supportive woman backing you.
Stacey's amazing. Yeah, she is.
Okay, sometimes you think through the answer as you go in there.
So Stacey kind of resolved it.
Good therapy for me, guys. Thank you.
So, it seems like a lot of your, the Haney podcast, the Haney Show podcast really is, I think kind of where I think a lot of the ideas came from. Like how did you start it? What made you, start this podcast?
Yeah, we started in 2014. Scott and I were kind of adding up the shows. I'm nearly 500 shows, which is kind of crazy. If I have one attribute is I am not a quitter, right? So I just keep going. I'm like that hungry dog that loves to fetch, right? That just keeps coming back regardless of how slobbery the ball is, right? I am that guy. And so I started it because I saw a gap in the market. It's the Mark Haney show now, and I like to say that I share the stories of winning to inspire, educate, and connect entrepreneurs to the more successful people in the region. And that, I didn't really know, I saw that gap in the market. I saw the gap, who's telling the stories out there? I was a member of the Entrepreneurs Organization at the time, and I felt like the stories of my friends in EO needed to be told. So I began doing that, and it kind of started almost as a lark. It actually started as my daughter and I were going to do a real estate show together, and then things didn't work out there, so I decided to convert it to entrepreneurship because I was really excited about that. So it was almost like, I'll try it. So that's how I got to where I am, but I began to meet really interesting people like yourself, like a lot of you that were really putting everything out there, and I began to really learn a lot about entrepreneurship in a way that I hadn't really felt it before because the best way to learn about entrepreneurship is to get in the trenches like you guys are. But the second best way is to talk to people who have been there and done that. And if you can really bring out the truth, it can be inspiring. It can be very educational. And for me, I felt like I learned a lot more and developed even a stronger appreciation for entrepreneurship. And I didn't really know how I was going to turn that into a business. I was like, that's a podcast. It's a passion project to a certain extent. But I did start using the line that I'm on a mission to ignite the entrepreneurial revolution right here in the hometown that we love. And that has ended up being sort of, I feel like, my calling, if you will, is that I'm a relentlessly local hometown person, I believe that all great change in America begins at the dinner table, and that, we should focus internally before we start going out and changing the world or around the country. It's like, wait, you got to get our own backyard right. And so that was, that's been my focus. I began investing. I've invested into like 50 companies, local, every VC in town. I'm an investor into those ventures. And so I think where the turning point is for me now, and this is why I'm really reinvigorated today after doing this for all these years, because we started something called the Growth Factory. And the way that began was, another thing, Brian mentioned this. I saw Brian last night. He's like, hey, man, I haven't heard, it really inspired me. I'm paraphrasing. I don't know that you said it this way. I remember hearing the story about, you having these successful business partners all in your backyard that all love one another, right? So I used to say that on my show a lot, and I would talk about it because that was, for me, I try to envision what it might look like when we win. And that was my vision, is like a picture all these people in my backyard that all love one another. 100 that all love one another. And so I tried to get a picture of what that looked like in my mind. Well, ultimately, it was 2019, October, and I decided, me and Monique Brown, who isn't here, one of my teammates, Nikki, is back there too, who I didn't mention. So I have a tendency to surround myself with great people. Anyway, we decided to throw that party, even though I didn't have 50 business partners yet. I'd invested into 40-something companies, but there were people that had helped me along the way. Were you there, Rich? I can't even remember if you were there. I don't think so. But the people that are friends with on the billboards, the radio stations, the other people who have sponsored the show were there, and we celebrated entrepreneurship. And it was in my backyard, and it was a group of my friends that all love each other. And it was like that moment that just felt right. And I knew that it was like my vision had come together. The one that you're talking about, I hadn't invested into enough companies yet, but it had came together. And it's like, okay, we got it. This is it. So now I just need to invest into more companies. So I hire a couple of people. I hire a guy to run a fund. We're going to, start using other people's money beyond my own. Hired this guy named Rick Spencer, who's not here.
He's out sick.
Oh, yes? Okay, so I hired Rick in December of that year. COVID hit about a month later, 2 months later, COVID hit. All our events stopped, our in-person radio show, podcast stuff stopped. There was internal strife, if you will, like, what are we going to do now? Me, Monique, Rick, and this other guy, like, what are we going to do? We're still going to do a fund? Is the world going to come to an end? Right? I had flashbacks in 2008 personally, so that was me, poor leadership on my part by kind of having flashbacks to 2008 where I had to lay off a bunch of people. Anyway, one guy left, the guy that was going to do the fund left, and Monique, Rick, and I decided, well, let's start something called the Growth Factory. And Rick really was the difference, because Monique and I had been working together for a long time, doing events and maybe be doing some investing with my own money. But then Rick came in, and he was really the missing piece of the whole thing. And so he oversees our fund, and Monique oversees the accelerator. So we're this startup accelerator with an accompanying venture fund and the Backyard Advantage, which is sort of my concept. And that is this group of people that all love each other, but it's not the Mark Haney show. It's the communities. It's the collective backyard of the Sacramento region. Not my backyard. It's your backyard, my backyard. It's our backyard. What if we could get the leaders of Sacramento, the most influential people in the region, to rally around the most promising startups in the region, just to give them that advantage, that little open the door to a customer or another investor, or a different opportunity, or change a perspective. That's what we've done. We started it in September of just this last September, not last September, a little year ago, September. We've invested into 30 plus companies. We've got 100 investors. We've got over 100 mentors. We've got corporate partners with like the city of Roseville, city of Rocklin, El Dorado County, SMUD, Five Star Bank. I could just go on and on about the corporate partners that want to help us do this, and we're just getting started. So what turned out to be, I think, a really cool vision. Oh, by the way, Rick Spencer was in the backyard because he was one of our portfolio companies. He was an employee at one of the portfolio companies. And when he heard the millionaire business partner thing, that all love one another, I talked about that in the backyard that day. Rick said, I want to be on the team. That's what brought him in, is that vision. And so that was what it's got him. And then what we've done in the last 12 months is we've basically taken our story of the backyard advantage to the rest of the region, and it's actually working. So it's like, oh God, this is why I'm so invigorated, is it's where I've been beating my head against the wall trying to get support for the concept of, being relentlessly local. I could get people on my show, but I want to help your portfolio companies, Haney. Come on, man. That's like, sure, I'll help you, dude. But now that people are thinking like an owner because they have skin in the game, they've come on as mentors and they're putting their time in, they're investing their money so they have skin in the game. Corporations are realizing that we have skin in the game too, because entrepreneurs drive economic growth and innovation and a different kind of mindset that we need 5, 10, 20 years from now. And so this really is becoming a thing, and it's amazing that it wouldn't have started without Rick and Monique and now Nikki and my teammates, because for me, I just came on as a passion project for a podcast, and now all of a sudden it's becoming a thing called the Backyard Advantage. And I'm really, really motivated about it right now.
Amazing how it starts from a small seed.
It's like, you're catching me at a time where I am very forward-leaning, very motivated about the Backyard Advantage. I'm even going to write a book about the Backyard Advantage, because this could happen in any underserved market like Sacramento. Sacramento's been overlooked for years in terms of venture capital and building an ecosystem that's thriving, especially as compared to Austin and Boston and the Silicon Valley and Bay Area. We're just underdeveloped, but it doesn't have to be that way because we've got great people here. We just have to bring them together.
Yeah, and you've done a great job of that.
Well, we have done a great job of that, but I look at it as we're just getting started.
So on the Growth Factory side, is everyone that's in the accelerator, are they each one funded, or is it just an opportunity to get funded?
No, they get funded.
Okay, so is there a formula, or is it different for each company?
Rick? It's different for each company. The question is, Rick oversees our fund. This Rick Spencer, the guy that I was bragging about earlier. Basically, you come in, you commit to go through the accelerator, and as part of that process, you get the Backyard Advantage, which is probably more valuable than the money we throw in. But we'll throw in anywhere from 25 grand to 100 grand, depending on what stage the company is at. And then we reserve, most of the funds is reserved for follow-on investments so that we can help you to get to that next round as you progress and get more traction. You want to add to that, Rick?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Now, there's been a number of accelerators here, and the thing that they were lacking, I mean, Velocity had Founders Institute. There's a number of them that have gone through, but the thing they've lacked was that funding part, which is the ingredient that you brought in.
The other thing that I think they lack, which is, the people always say, well, I'm lacking the money. I agree that the accelerators have lacked the money, so 100%. But if that's all that we were lacking, that would be easy to start a fund and an accelerator. But what makes this really special is the way we did the security camera business or the video store business. I didn't tell you about the secret sauce there. the secret sauce is the love, right? Is that we all know each other. We're all like, we can get to know each other. We're not writing checks and sending them around the country. It's like our people that live in our town. So we get to know each other. We get to go have a beer together or drink coffee together, have some pizza, invite you over to my house to hang out. That's what's possible in a place-based accelerator with a fund if you have the right mindset, and that's around collaboration and inclusiveness, instead of trying to build it so that it's all mine or it's all ours. It's all of ours. This is a community effort and it begins with conversations that leads to trust and ultimately strong friendships and love. And if you go back to my video store days or my security days, that's the kind of team that we built, a team that loved one another, because that can happen. It can happen in a family. You might have some button heads occasionally, but ultimately you see it through and you love one another because there's enough reason to do it. It's how we got here as a society.
I would just add to that, Mark. If you follow our LinkedIn, you would have seen this week that we're part of the Global Accelerator Network, which is a membership invite only of 120 accelerators throughout the world. And they just spotlighted us after 1 year because of how this strategy is standing out and becoming a best practice. And so, yes, capital has been lacking, but the power of this community is something that everyone's looking to engineer and create. And so, yes, there's been accelerators with programming. They lacked capital, but the strength of the community is how this wins. It's not just capital. It's not just programming. It's that community.
It's community.
Yeah, it's funny because I told the story. We had our first cohort graduate the other day, so I told kind of a dumb story. That there's these two young fish swimming along, and they run into the old fish, and the old fish says, "Hey boys, how's the water?" And the old fish or the young fish just kind of swim away and go, "What the hell is water?" Right? Sometimes the answers are so obvious. We have great people here. We just need to work together. It's so easy to see that this can happen. There's a human system that can be developed. We have all these people doing all these great things all over town. Can't we just work together to help, identify the ones that can break out and help them get there?
The one thing I was actually very impressed with is your relationship with Roseville, and I think they've invested something like $1.3 million to the program. How did that come about?
Well, as you know, I grew up in Roseville.
Right.
So, and the mayor has been on my show a couple times. That's not how it happened. What happened is, I think that there are people that get it. Okay, there are people that get it, and there's people that don't get it. Some people understand the power of entrepreneurship, that entrepreneurs are the heroes of the American economy. They take risks, they make sacrifices, they create opportunity, they figure out a way to change the world. And the smart people that are mayors and city council people want that in their backyard. They also want to have it happen. Like Roseville wants Rocklin to have it happen, and Rocklin wants Roseville to have it happen because there's a bleed over effect. El Dorado County wants it to happen. We're talking to Folsom about making it happen. Rancho Cordova wants it to happen. The ones that get it, like, oh, of course you've got to bet. If we invest in a company, we're not expecting a payday next year. It takes time. We're a startup, and this takes time. But they understand that you got to invest, I call it put your money where your town is. And that's the way to think. We all talk about, buy from the local coffee shop and all, of course, but invest into the local economy as well. And there's no better place to do it than investing in entrepreneurs. They're the ones that when they succeed, they ended up spinning off other entrepreneurs. They create a lot of wealth. They drive economic development. We pay a lot of freaking taxes, right? And that's good for a municipality because it drives great park systems and so on. So the leadership of the city of Roseville gets that. I can't tell you that everybody gets that, but the city of Roseville and the city of Rocklin and El Dorado County, they get it. The other ones will get it as well, but sometimes you just need to, being first takes a little bit of courage, so you got to hand it to Roseville for having a little courage.
When you have a number of investments that you've done in companies, what do you look at when you make an investment in a company?
It's got to be local. And it's got to be right now. So I'm going to speak from a growth factory standpoint, okay, versus like I've made a bunch of investments myself. I own restaurants and, all kinds of startups that have accelerated like crazy and, have sold. And so that's my personal portfolio. The growth factory, we look for the similar things, but we're not investing into maybe mom and pop type companies like restaurants or what maybe it'd be a typical brick and mortar type company. It would be something that's typically tech enabled and have the ability to scale nationally or globally. So it needs to have a large enough market, and the founder and the founding team need to have the desire to scale it. So local scalability, but really we look at the founder and the founding team. That's really, when it comes down to it, that's the differentiation. It's like, okay, because we want to bet on the jockey, not the horse as much. There's a lot of good ideas out there, but every one of us that is a startup is going to pivot. We need to be investing in people who are going to be able to weather the hard times, self-aware enough to know that they don't have all the answers and that they're going to have to step back and figure it out. So the values we look at are commitment, humility, and authenticity. Those are probably the three core values we look at most, and that comes across through really getting to know them a little bit. So between Rick, Monique, and myself, we kind of have a process where we go through and we hash it out because we only can invest into so many companies at a time. So that's sometimes it's tough saying no, but or not yet. You're not ready yet. So
Yeah, that's a good way. Not yet. That's a good response.
sometimes that's difficult, but
We had that with, sorry.
yeah, go ahead, Rick.
Had people, we launched 2 cohorts. We're preparing for cohort 3 in February. There were people that applied for cohort 1 and we said, you're not ready. But we gave them guidance and said, go work on these things. And they came back and they were ready for cohort 2. So we mean that, it's not just trying to be kind and polite. We really mean it. And we want to get them plugged in to the ecosystem and have the right partners so that they can continue to work on that idea and get ready.
Okay. So I'm going to, before we go to open up to audience questions, I'm going to do rapid fire questions. This is you. All right. So you got to, first thing you think of, most promising tech you've seen.
Tech?
Yeah.
Promising tech I've seen. I got told the other day on the show that the most promising innovation that we have is the ability to collaborate with one another.
Okay.
That's the most innovative thing that we do.
Favorite TV show.
Currently, Yellowstone.
Best investment.
Best investment? A lot of ways that I could say that. I'll bring up a company called Riznos. It was a kid that went to my high school that was half my age, and he sold it. I made 80x, but more than the big return was this guy ended up kind of being like a son to me. So living vicariously through people that I invest in is the most rewarding piece to me.
That's great. Favorite type of music.
Country western.
What actor would you
Or
want,
70s.
Or 70s. What actor would you want to play you in a movie about you?
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise. Favorite superhero.
Favorite superhero. I don't know who that would be. I'll say Superman.
All right. iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Favorite sports team?
Wow. Niners.
Niners.
But the Kings are on a 5-game winning streak. I'm coming back. I've got season tickets to the Kings since they got here, and now they're coming. It looks like they could surprise a lot of people. And then for baseball, I like the Giants.
Getting up early or staying late?
I get up really early every morning, and I don't typically stay up late. If staying late means staying up late.
Yeah.
So.
I heard. I think you mentioned on a podcast you get up like at 3 a.m. or something.
Get up. I go to yoga early. Yoga or CrossFit early.
What time do you get up?
3:15. I call it 3:15 the moment of truth. Sometimes it's bad, but I get up anyway.
Favorite vacation spot?
We like to go to Cabo. We got a place in Cabo. We go there quite a bit.
All right. Best way for someone to get your attention?
Hustle.
Hustle.
Move fast. Move with purpose.
So just keep hustling till they get your attention?
I see someone walking. I'm an old school person. I can tell about somebody's work ethic by how fast they freaking walk. Sounds so bad, doesn't it? That's how my dad trained me. That's what my dad looked for. Is, I guess the apple didn't fall too far.
Favorite movie?
Favorite movie? Godfather.
Advice that you would give to your 18-year-old self?
You be you.
All right. Who inspires you?
Entrepreneurs.
All right. Favorite food?
T-bone steak from Ruth's Chris. But or salmon from Bennett's.
And advice
One of my companies.
Advice that you would give to entrepreneurs?
That's pretty interesting. I hate to say something cliche. I ask this question on my show every week, so it's always kind of interesting. I'm trying to come up with something original. The one thing that's been probably deepest rooted in me is the knowledge that nobody builds a truly great company alone. And it's not just building a company with other people. It's building a company with badasses. Especially as a startup, if you start a company and you put some quasi-committed people around you, the results will speak for themselves. And that's what I did when I started the podcast. I had some people around me that were helping me with it, just a little less committed than, and maybe that was leadership on my part. And I was trying to do it on the cheap and with people that kind of had other ambitions and stuff. I think bringing on Monique Brown, who just put everything into it. And then bringing on Rick, who put everything into it. And they're co-founders, so they're fully committed in that way as well. But it's the quality of people you put around. You need to put people around you that balance out your strength, your weaknesses, and can do things that you can't do. But don't just put people in your life that aren't going to bring out the best in you. My brother was that for me in building my companies earlier. My wife is that for building our family, and Rick, Monique, Scott, Nikki. That's it for the Growth Factory. And it's like, I really have, that's why I'm so enthused right now. I have a badass team. This team that we have it's the foundation for something that it's as good as any organization I've ever been around at the core. Now the sky's the limit.
All right, so I'm going to open up to audience questions. Maurice?
Yes, I have a question. So you seem to be a man of many passions and you wear many hats, but you also talk about niches and specialization. So how do you balance being in so many places, yet at the same time have the focus?
Yeah, interesting. So I break my life up into 4 categories. Family, I wrote a mission statement. So this is after selling my companies. Anybody here have a mission statement? I highly recommend a well thought through mission statement. Mine is with future generations in mind. I will help create opportunity for my family, my friends, and my community. And as they succeed, I succeed. So opportunity through commitment. So if it has to do with driving opportunity, I'm interested. But I do limit so family, I'm building a family compound called Haneyville, and I am diving all in on this family compound. And if you haven't listened to my show, I've talked about it a little bit, but it is the most magical place on earth outside of Disneyland. It is really, really special right in the heart of Loomis, 72 acres. So that's like a one thing kind of thing. Of course, there's people associated with that. My focus really is around this backyard advantage, right? So my focus for business today, yes, I'm investing into a lot of startups. We're building a growth factory, an accelerator, and a fund, and Rick and Monique and Nikki, they're doing that. But the backyard advantage is the secret sauce of this whole thing. We have to do that. And that's where, so the other things are important in terms of mechanics, But for me and what I bring, my differentiator is that I can get very passionate about this opportunity, and I need to spread that message and help bring in that backyard advantage. And so that's really my role. So as much as there's a lot of moving parts, luckily, great leaders that I put myself around have made it so that I don't have to be as deeply in the weeds with what tech we're backing. It's like, can I go? Would I want to go out and have a beer with that founder that we're investing into? Yeah. Okay. Good. Is the tech good, Rick? Sweet. Let's roll.
Any other questions? Really? Okay.
Okay.
I want to thank you to Mark back in 2018, invited me to the office, and you gave me a lot of wisdom as we were launching. We survived because of a lot of money he gave me. So thank you for that. So one thing that I've noticed in working with some of the students, and what I love about you is you're both timely and timeless in terms of your principles, in terms of, and you've been able to survive and thrive in a lot of different decades and spaces. What has been the key to that? You've mentioned some of it, but you haven't gone down to one or two components. How do you stay timeless in your principles, but also timely, and how do you impact and enrich people and community?
The one thing that comes to mind is you said, thank you, by the way, I appreciate that. I do something called, did you come to a hang-in with Haney? Is that what you came to? Like small group in my office? I've told Sacramento entrepreneurs, I want to meet all the entrepreneurs in Sacramento because I learned from you. So that's really rewarding for me to be able to do that. But one thing that I think, I have a slogan, another slogan, you're either hanging or banging, right? So hanging is downtime, right? That's good. Banging is when you're at your very best. It's your very best opportunity. You're firing on all cylinders on the right stuff. But I think a lot of us don't stop enough to do our hanging, where you really get self-aware and remind yourselves as to what's really important to you. So I highly believe in carving out time. I call it hanging because I'm just trying to be cute with it, but it's really, it could be meditation, it could be writing it down and revisiting it, but really having who you are deep down on the core, in your core, and thinking about it on a regular basis. I visualize it every morning, these things that are most important to me, and it makes me think about, what I'm grateful for, and I have a little practice that I do around that. But it keeps you grounded. But if you don't have downtime, if all you are is balls to the wall, you got to, that's good sometimes, right? Banging is good, but like you got to stop and regroup. And I think a lot of people they almost feel guilty about that regroup time, that recharge time. You got to have that because that's where you remind yourself of what's really important to you. Eric?
I'm Eric. I come from Europe. It's my US colleagues. I find very interesting what you are telling from European perspective for the following reason. Your example where you said that the US, California used to be sending checks all over the world.
Yeah.
I think that is how it actually started, the entire system. Then in Europe, we said, oh, that's a good idea. We're going to do that too. You know what? Let's create what I call organized unemployment. So we take a lot of government money, because when you think that taxes are high here, come and visit me in Belgium. And we distribute all that money like this. Everybody is busy with all the wrong things. And so actually you create people who think that they're entrepreneurs, and by the time they turn 35, they have a living standard, but they haven't created anything. Mm. Just to give you some numbers, today, this is in France alone, 1.8 million people. This is only in France who have been raised like that. So you have to imagine that this is actually 4 times the people that are in prison. If you know how much time it takes to re-educate these people when they come. So what I understand, and I specifically came along with the guys because Grace told me, he said, you have to, one of our board members, you have to go there. I listened to his show. I think what you want, I'm looking forward to your book, The Backyard Advantage, because I think it's actually bringing these good intentions of how do we fund ideas over and above all the political abuses, people just doing it for money, back to the basis. This, how do you make sure that the funds end up with the people that need it? which is of course broader and more holistically than what we are doing at Unbox. We say we believe that every building better societies need a more efficient and effective fund distribution. For that, we need to keep evil out of money, and that is why we have built Unbox, which is a tech company. It's our mission statement. But I believe from a societal and a sociological and economic perspective, I think it's brilliant what you are doing. It's actually incubating 3.0. 1.0 was a good idea. 2.0 was about money or all the political reasons behind. I think the third reason, and that's why I hope that all the local political parties that you discussed are going to follow suit quickly, because otherwise your talent will go away. And I think everybody in this room knows that from a global perspective, California used to be a big economy, still is, but we all know that the writing is on the wall if the things don't change. All the big companies are starting to check out, the national investors starting to doubt. I was yesterday with our own government here. You know, we start forgetting about the West Coast. The magic is gone a bit. So perhaps we need to go and find it in Hayden Village.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, I love
what you did, but I think it's very, very good, very feet on the ground.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, I think you talked about the city of Roseville and Rocklin, and I don't know how this. If we said, hey, it's up to a vote of the city council who you're going to invest into, we're not going to invest into the most promising companies.
Get a donut.
Yeah, I'm using my friends. Rick and I went out and got 99 of our buddies to throw in the pool, and we invested that money. It's our money too, but they want a return on their investment. Of course, they see it as a civic, a duty, and they want to help us, but they also want a return on their investment. And so we're committed to not only picking the right people to invest into, helping them to unleash their potential. So it's a lot different than a typical government might do, as you can imagine.
Any other questions?
Have you guys thought about carving out any space for teen entrepreneurs, or is there interest in developing that side of the growth factory?
Yeah, I believe we have a partnership with the city, as it was discussed, and there's actually something happening with the school district as well in and around Placer County for high schoolers. It's not necessarily to fund their ideas yet, but we're beginning some of those kind of partnerships right now within the Growth Factory. Because the Growth Factory accelerator is actually a nonprofit, and then the fund is for profit. But they work together. We work together collaboratively to kind of do some of the stuff that is maybe a little bit less profitable, but yet is super important for the long haul. Yeah.
Have you ever considered, although you just said it needs to be local, have you ever considered to travel your show locally or only globally around the world and go and kick some ass there? Because, for example, one of the things my grandmother told me is a kick under your ass makes you taller, but the tap on your shoulder makes you smaller. You know, to just not fall asleep when you're successful. When you say this in Belgium, well, not anymore the current company, but the previous company, which I owned, the big group, you have the union standing in front of the door, just because you said that. So you know, like your people you put in sleep, like, because, and that's what I like about also what you, I hope the book is also written in that tone of voice. Have you ever considered that, crossing the front and go and kick some balls around there? Even going
We should hang out. I'm trying to tone myself down, but we're okay. I'm not going to.
I think there's also some people to be kicked around all the way from Wall Street.
Heck yes. I think the book, one of the things is Rick talked about us being in this global accelerator network. We're beginning to get a little bit of recognition already. The book will probably help with that. I think the most important thing is that we are successful. And if this really comes together the way that it seems to be coming together, I think there will be people around the country or maybe around the world that want to adopt some of our principles. And that's kind of what we're going to capture in the book. It'll be basically experience sharing for what we are doing and really looking back at this from a broader perspective and what are the key things that we are doing that really have really been the game changers for us. Because as I've mentioned, I was not as successful until certain things began to happen And so I'm kind of capturing that in the book.
50 copies sold.
All right. I love it. Thank you. Thank you.
Robert?
You know the Sacramento area pretty well. Every town has got some particular industry strengths that's just based on what the characteristics and skill sets of the people are. What's the short list for Sacramento?
I think Sacramento, we have healthcare, strong in healthcare. We're a government town, where it really is what it is. So we have a lot of potential in government or GovTech. So from an ag is stuff is strong. A lot of great stuff coming out of UC Davis. We're finding really good opportunity coming out of UC Davis. But some of the corporations in town have really good talent. So we're invested in a couple of founders that have come out of Intel. So those pillars are there. We also see a strength in that people have migrated from the Bay Area that have got a lot of experience. So we think that's a little bit of a tailwind for entrepreneurship. But I really think our biggest strength is that we can act like a small town. I think that, if I had to say, like, why is this going to work? It's because we have the ability to act like a small town. And I agree with you. Roseville began as a railroad town, but that's not its strength anymore. It matters, but it's not its strength. So I don't know if that answered your question enough. I think Folsom has Intel, so each community is a little bit different. Elk Grove's got a lot of its proximity to the Silicon Valley has got value. So Davis, though, it's got all kinds of great stuff.
Yeah, I could do one more question. Anyone? Well, I have a question then. So when you were working with veterans, and what have you seen from your work with veterans?
What happens, as I mentioned, my son is a veteran, wounded in Afghanistan, and so at first we started working with wounded warriors because that's the kind of area so we gave away action track chairs, which are these wheelchairs with tank tracks on them for people that had their legs blown off and stuff like that. Luckily, that's not happening as much anymore. So thank God we don't have as many severely wounded veterans. So if you look at that, it's real positive. But what we've noticed is there's still people that come back and they feel somewhat lost, maybe somewhat disenfranchised at some level. And you kind of picture this, and that causes PTS in many cases. There's a high suicide rate among vets, 23 a day. And a lot of it's because they come back. So picture this, you've been working for a government agency and you've got yourself committed to the cause, and then all of a sudden you're out and you're put back into your hometown and you're alone, back with maybe your high school friends, but you're back into an environment that's way different than what you were, and none of those same people are along there with you. Right? Everybody goes back to their hometown for the most part. And so those people that go back to their hometown, that being lost piece can lead to, I guess, underdeveloped success. And so that's really where we step in. So we have a multifaceted program that takes people as they're getting out of the military. The last 6 months while they're in the military, it's like an intern program where the military, we call it Skill Bridge. The military will pay their wages and then go to work for you guys, or they can go to work for somebody else, and it's on the government's dime. And that's a good thing to transition. We also have an education program if they don't want to intern and run through schooling, because a lot of them don't want to go to a 4-year degree, even though the GI Bill's out there, you can go get your college degree. You don't want to sit there with the young people maybe as much when you've been a career fighting person. So how do you fast track into a good job? And you can go through like a trade school. So we put them through those kind of programs as well. And you get your management certification or something like that, and then get them placed into a good job. But really, I guess the thing that I see is that they feel alone. And if you can solve that and really take a look at giving them a little optimism and a game plan, then they can attack. But they get out of attack mode, and because they don't have a game plan, they're alone. What do I do? and they went from being, America's finest to now I'm just an ordinary Joe and I don't even know where I'm going with life. And so that's really where we step in. And so I think it's possible that it's kind of the same thing with entrepreneurship. When you feel alone, you don't move as well. And so we're finding that same thing with veterans. And so that's really what we're doing. So we're really helping people get a lot of jobs right now. So, and as I was thinking about some of the stuff that you're working on, I want to make sure I mention this. One of the companies that we're invested into is in college athlete, is focused on college athletes. It's an influencer marketplace for college athletes and high school athletes, not professional athletes as much. And it's thinking about the relationships that you have with schools as well. So I think some of the things I'm working on, so I want to open this up to all of you as I say this. We're investing into 30 companies. I'm investing into 50 others. I've got a veteran organization that does workforce development. We want to partner, right? So we want to find collaboration that helps all of you as well, and we can all help each other. So make sure that or don't feel shy about, if you think something you're working on aligns with something we're working on, let's see if we can, at least have a conversation about it.
So I want to really, first off, thank you for coming today and sharing your experience and your wisdom with us. And then I have to say, thank you for, all that you do for our community. I got to go to the graduation for cohort 1, and I was sitting there thinking about, wow, I went to an accelerator philosophy way back, and I was just thinking, wow, they're so lucky to have, the growth factor, to have, what you put in play, which started out as a humble podcast. And so anyway, I took a picture while I was there, and I just wanted to offer this for you.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it very much. Thank you for what you do too. This is really, I think you had Kevin Nagel, I think last time, and he's, is probably one of the most successful people in Sacramento. So you keep bringing up people, all these different walks of life, and you're gonna help a lot of people.
I'm just glad that you're with us. And so anyway, this ends the fireside chat. We probably have a lot of pizza. I haven't really taken inventory. So please help yourself. And, the other magic that I've seen, and I've seen it with Mark and Kevin, is, just the conversation at the pizza table is where magic happens. The event that I had Kevin Nagel in Davis, he met a startup there and ended up leading a $2 million round, which you invested in. I think when you taught at Davis, when you spoke at Davis, you met some people that's still around.
Yeah, I met one guy and he's now invested into the fund.
Right.
Yeah.
So the magic happens at pizza. So have some more pizza. All right. Thank you. And so coming up, we are going to have a startup holiday party. So for you guys that are solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, if you've ever been in a corporate environment, they used to have really great parties. I remember that. So we're going to have a party. It's not going to be, it'll be here, but it'll be nice. It'll be a chance to just, have a good holiday party. And then we just ask you to bring us a food item for the Twin City Food Bank. And that's on December 8th. And the following Tuesday, we're going to have, it's one of the members of the Granite co-working. He's a sales expert, so he's going to talk about, the title is Startup Sales Fundamentals. So sales is the lifeblood of any organization. So if you have a startup, you should attend that. So thank you very much. And, you are now free to move around the cabins.